Welcome to the channel Learn with Danish. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. Hello all, welcome back to the second part of the video of the series which goes under the title Structuralism. In the first video we had discussed what a structure is and what are the general characteristics that we can see inside a structure and what is the difference between a structure and an aggregate. I have taken the metaphor of this building as well as raga, the musical structure, in order to explain the concept of the structure. In this video, I would be focusing on the theories that was put forward by Ferdinand de Saussure, the Swiss linguist, whose work provide the basis of the structuralist school of criticism which emerged in the early quarter of the 20th century. His structuralist principle is often associated with the theorization of language as such, and this theorization had a great influence on various other school of criticism that emerged during the first quarter of the 20th century. I have mentioned it in the video that I have talked of related to Russian formalism, for instance. So Ferdinand de Saussure is a Swiss linguist, and he had delivered a series of lectures from 1906 to 1911, and this series of lecture with regard to his theorization of the language was compiled and published by his French students in French in the year 1915, which was titled as Cours général linguistique. That is the French version. So the French version was published in the year 1915, that is 2 years after the death of Ferdinand de Saussure. He died in the year 1913. And in this work, we tend to see that Saussure treated the system of language as a structure in which the meaningful utterance of words actually imply what is known as the constituent parts inside the structure, or the sign is actually the constituent parts inside the structure of language, which when coded together in a peculiar manner creates the concept of or a system of language as such. So his theory is based on the study of language, and in order to focus on the study of language, we have basically two types related to the study of language, that is the diachronic approach and the synchronic approach. The diachronic approach, that is a historical study of language, but Saussure on the other hand focused on a synchronic kind of approach towards language studies. And in order to understand this approach, we need to get deeper into the analysis of language. So according to Saussure, language is a system of structure, and in that system of structure we have signs. And this sign is composed of two overlapping elements, that is what he calls signified and signifiers. Now, what is a signifier? Now, if we take for example the word cat or the word pencil, it acts as a sign in the language structure system. And this sound that is made, for example, the sound here is k, a, t, or pencil, and the word sound cat is what Saussure actually termed as signifiers. And the concept that you get in your mind when you hear that sound of a cat, that is a four-legged domestic animal, and when you say the word pencil, a kind of writing instrument, the image that comes onto your mind is what Saussure terms as signified. So sign is the overlapping of two aspects, that is the signifier and the signified. Signifier is the sound pattern in the constituent part, that is sign, and signified is the concept, image that comes onto your mind when you hear that sound. And according to Saussure, there is no kind of inherent connection between the signified and the signifier. Saussure argues that there is no inherent or natural relationship between the signifier and the signified. For example, let us take the word tree. Tree is actually the sound image, that is, the signifier is the sound of the word tree, and the concept that we get in our mind, that is the trunk, the branches and the leaves, is known as the signified. And there is no inherent relationship between the signifier and signified. So it doesn't mean that the signified represents the signifier. To be more precise, let us take the same example in other language. For example, in Malayalam, we use maram in order to convey the signified tree. So the maram sound, that is the signifier sound of the Malayalam language, has no equivalence or no sound equivalence to the sound of tree in English language, but the signified for both is the same. The concept image is same when you call maram or tree, right? So there is no inherent relationship between the signifier and signified in language structure according to Ferdinand de Saussure. So here the question arises, how a signifier is able to signify without having an empirical note or empirical tie between the two. So according to Saussure, a signifier is able to signify not through the attachment to a particular concept of signifieds, but through its relationship with other signifiers within a particular language system. Just like I had explained the significance of the word window in a building, or the significance of the word door in a building, it is because of this oppositional relationship within the structure that it gains that meaning. Now take for example the word white in English signifies white not because it has got any connection with the word sound white. Rather, white is considered to be the white concept image because it is not black, because it is not green, it is not blue. So here each signifiers occupy the space that other signifiers particularly don't occupy. So each word sound signifies what other word sounds do not signify, because they are in a kind of oppositional relationship. So according to Saussure, a language as a structure is always complete and self-contained at any given point of time, and therefore linguists should study it in terms of its internal relationships that exist at any given moment in time, rather than merely go in a kind of historical study. So this is why Saussure treats synchronic approach to language study as more important to the diachronic approach of the study of language. Now, when we talk about the relationship of difference or the oppositional relationship that connect the signifiers with the meaning as such, then we need to remember that like any rule guiding the structure, this particular language system as a structure also has an inherent rule and is unique to that language structure as such. The oppositional relationship between the words inside the language is completely arbitrary. So the rules are justified in the language itself. It cannot be justified outside the structure of a language. So you cannot say that in Malayalam it is used like this, then why is it used in English? Why does this word mean this in English? In Malayalam it means this. So there is no scope of validation or justification with regard to the rules of a particular language structure. It is built upon inside the language system or structures. In order to understand this, I would like to take the example of two sentences. I thread the cloth. I thread the cloth, and I tread on different parts. One is THREAD, the other one is TREAD. Now these two words are oppositionally related. You can see the sense of difference in meaning between these two word sound, tread and thread, in the English language, because we register it as two different. It is based on the oppositional relationship of the sound image, tread and thread. So t and th is different in sound image when compared to the English language. Let us take another example. For example, the word coat. It can be COT or QUOTE, right? So when you pronounce that word, you can either pronounce it with a non-aspirating k sound, that is coat, or an aspirating k sound in English, coat. But when we use this in another language, for example, Arabic, the word kalb. Kalb means a dog. Qalb means the heart as such. So k, the unaspirated k sound, is different from the aspirated k sound in Arabic, but it does not have that difference in the English language. So the phonetic difference in a language is unique to the rules that it prescribes in that particular language structure. So in an English language, the sound t in tread and the sound th in thread signifies two distinct meanings, but the sound, the unaspirated sound k and the aspirated sound ka, signifies no meaningful difference in the English language, because the rule is set like that in that language structure. Before we end our discussion on Saussure, I would also like to introduce two other concepts that was put forth by Saussure, that is langue and parole. So in order to understand the question of the langue and parole, when we talk of language as a structure, what do you mean by that? Is it the language that I'm speaking right now? Will that be a language structure? So according to Ferdinand de Saussure, the language that I speak is extremely individualistic. And this individualistic use or structure of the language is what is known as parole, according to Saussure. And there is a standardization of language structure. And this standardization of language structure is what is known as langue. I'll explain it in detail. It means that my individual utterances, that is parole, is a part of a larger structure, that is langue, but can never be the entire structure in itself. So if my use of language is the ultimate structure, then you cannot allocate the oppositional difference because you are outside the structure of my language. To be more clear related to langue and parole, Saussure answers this question of the distinction between these two terms by analogically the game of chess. Now, in a game of chess, there is a set of rules assigned with the moves in the game of chess. For example, a bishop moves in a peculiar manner, the horse moves in a peculiar manner, the soldier moves in a peculiar manner, and that is destined, or that is inherent, or that is the rule behind the game of chess. But when I or you play that game of chess, it is my individualistic move. I can move the horse in the left side direction or the right side direction according to my will. So my movement here is what is known as parole, but langue is the inherent rule that is apparent to the larger structure of the game of chess. So langue is inherent to the larger structure of the language, whereas parole is the individual structure that is a byproduct of this larger structure. So we can understand this particular concept when we take up Claude Lévi-Strauss, for instance, in the next video. Right, Claude Lévi-Strauss uses this concept of langue and parole in order to analyze the mythical narrative of literary text, in order to understand the origins of human existence. So in the next video, I would be focusing on Claude Lévi-Strauss and his contribution in the field of structuralism, along with Roland Barthes, if possible. Till then, it's me, Danish, signing off. Have a good day. Learn with Danish.